Hi there everyone. In this lesson I wanted to show you how to make pockets on a scarf. There are a few ways and there's lots of different things that you can do. I'll show you how to knit a pocket, and then I'll show you if you're wanting to crochet a pocket onto a scarf. It's very simple, you know, there's not too much to the technique. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this, whether you're doing it in knitting or this is a brioche scarf that I'm going to be showing you how to make in 2 colors as well. But not in this lesson, that's in another lesson. And but I'm just going to show you how to do the pocket on that for this and to crochet. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's get started. A little bit about pockets and your scarves. I'll just show you 1 or 2 methods that you can use. It's really up to you. It's really up to you as to what you want to do. I've got 3 different ways I'm going to show you to make pockets on your scarf. As I say, there are different ways, but let's just go ahead and start with these and see which you prefer. So the very first one, that is your easiest and simplest one, is to just take your scarf as it is, just knit it as it is, and then flip this bottom up. Okay, so you just flip it up like that, and then you sew your sides together. You just sew that side and sew this side, and you have your pocket on your scarf. And so you can make it as high as you want. If you want a real deep pocket, and especially with these colors that I have, now you can show your colors a little bit better. Just flip it up and then simply sew it down the sides. I'll show you some sewing now, but you would just sew this together here and that together like that, and there you have your pocket. Very simple, very easy, and that's your best way. Now the other thing that you can do is be aware of, you're going to be making pockets. So you could start off, when you start your knitting over here, you can start off with a nice little border over here. So whatever stitch pattern or whatever, you can make a little border and then start your actual stitch, so that you have, when you flip it over here, you have a border over here for the top of your pocket. Cable or whatever you want to do. I haven't actually done that. Somewhere I'll actually make a video with a few different pockets. Maybe the next one. I just wanted to get you started with the basics of a pocket. But yeah, if you start off just making a little border over here in cable or in whatever, that when you flip it over onto as the pocket, your top part will already have its border. One way. You can also make the full-on pocket over here, and I'll show you what I mean now that you can flip it over. But anyways, as I said, this is your first one over here. You can make a border over there, or you can come back afterwards and make a border, pick up your stitches here and make a border. That's also one way. Now I've made two really simple little pockets here. All I did, so to make a pocket that's not attached to this, I do show you how to actually cast your stitches on that's quite a bit less than this. So your stitches would come to about here, because it gets bigger as you make this. Now this I just did in plain old garter stitch. Everything is knitted on here. Now all that you would do is sew this on. Now it's up to you as to how you want to sew it on or where you want to sew it on. You can sew it up here if you like. All you would do is sew it over there, you'd sew it onto here, and you'd sew it along the side, and then you have a pocket kind of in the middle of your scarf with this hanging over. It's up to you. I mean, just play with it. If you want it right at the bottom, as I say, I will show you a little bit of sewing. You could go right to the edge like that, do this, and now you have a pocket over there. You can take a yarn. This I've made very loose, so it's just a different design. Be creative, take very different yarn. This is very different yarn, as I'll show you. And you can take this one, and in this one I started off with just garter stitch, and I brought the garter stitch up on the sides and I finished it off with a garter stitch like that. Now this one I would suggest we put kind of over here, more or less in the middle of the scarf, and then it looks very unique and creative. And then once again, either sew it on the sides. Mine actually works that it sews on the sides. It worked the perfect size, but you don't have to. You can sew it so that you have a pocket that's sitting like this. So you got a little bit on the edges open, so it's not full with your scarf. So don't feel you have to. I mean, if yours is smaller, you just put your pocket like this, and you have your edges showing. Whether you want it there, whether you want it right at the bottom, you can do that as well. See there, and then you have your sides open like that. Mine's just working out that it's the same size, but if you don't have it the same size and it's smaller, there you have a pocket like that, which is also really nice. But yeah, I mean, mine really fits the whole thing, so I'll just go with it like that. And this is very different fabric, and it looks unique. And as I say, up to you whether you want it here or whether you want it there. So those are a few examples. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to knit this actual pattern. It's not really a pattern, but just how you do this. And then this is just generic, your plain garter stitch with nothing. You can go ahead and make a few pockets in different patterns which you could use, and I'll do that for another lesson where I actually make some scarf pockets for you, and then you can use them on a scarf. I just wanted to show you how to actually make them here. So let me go ahead and show you how to sew. So if you're looking at making a pocket scarf that I'm going to be using, alright, now as I say, one way to make it is just to flip this up and sew your sides together. There you have a very simple, easy pocket. But say you don't want to do that, you want to do something a little different, you can knit a pocket specifically for this. Anyway, so to make a pocket, go ahead and cast your stitches on. Now, you don't have to use the same yarn. I mean, the sky's the limit. This is where your creativity can come in. You can go ahead and use a very different yarn and make a very different looking pocket on here. I've just used this same one, but I mean, honestly, you can use a real thick yarn and make a little different pocket here. You don't have to use the same yarn. Okay, so here's with the same yarn. I just cast on stitches there. Now, it'll depend on you. The odds of you getting exactly the same as this is not going to happen unless you're using the same stitch. Alright, so the odds are of you getting your pocket exactly the same size of this, if you're using a different stitches, are a little bit is probably not going to happen unless you're using the same amount of stitches and the same thing here. But then it's easier just to fold this up. So odds are you're going to be looking at making a different looking pocket. So go ahead and use the same cotton if you want to, or like me, I'm going to go ahead and use this yarn. It's just some scrap yarn that I have, and it's a very different texture. You can see it's a different texture, and I'm just going to be creative and make something, a different looking pocket. Now what you got to remember, think of what stitch you want to use. You want something that's going to complement your scarf. So you know, it's up to you. So what I'm going to do is, I think I want to go with a kind of a plain stockinette pocket, simply because my yarn is so different as well. So it's up to you if you want to play with something on the border. For example, you could do garter stitch for your first few stitches, stockinette, and then garter stitch for your end stitches, because that also works and it gives you a little bit of a flair. So I'm going to go ahead and start my pocket, and that's just the basics of how you want to interpret your pocket, what you want to do for it. You know, if you want to do a different stitch, different size, you don't want to go bigger than your scarf, so be careful of that, because I mean, you could, but then you're going to have to flip it over the sides. It's not really what you do. So go ahead, get your yarn, choose what yarn, and I'll go ahead and start mine and then show you how we do the rest of the pocket. Alright, so just know that this knitting is going to become bigger. It looks like there's a few. Your knitting becomes bigger. Your knitting becomes bigger as you knit. So mine's quite a bit smaller than this, as you can see, but it does, when you start knitting, it's going to expand, if I can put it that way. It's going to get at least another inch onto this. Okay, so just remember that. Now, this is so varied. You can come up with your own pattern, everything. It doesn't, how you make your pocket. I'm just showing you generally. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make mine with garter stitch. Garter stitch is just plain knit. All your rows are knit, 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 knit. So my little border, I'm going to start off with garter stitch. Because remember, just stockinette stitch, which is 1 row knit, 1 row purl, 1 row knit, 1 row purl. Stockinette stitch in itself rolls. It doesn't stay flat like this. If this was stockinette, it's going to either roll up or under, or whatever, whichever way. It rolls, and your sides too. So it ends up being like this, which is not a problem if you want to do that, because you're sewing it on here and you could sew it on straight. So it's not a problem, but I'm going to make mine a little bit different. I'm going to do garter stitch for the little border, and then up my sides I'm going to do garter stitch as well. And I'll show you how to do that. You can use rib, you can do whatever you want to on the sides in the beginning, or you can do plain stockinette. This is up to you. I'm just giving you an example here. So I'm going to start off by doing a few rows in just plain knit stitch. All the rows are going to be knit. I'll probably do about 5 rows. 5 or 6 rows just in knit. So you can go ahead and do that. Just knit, do however many rows you want, and then I will meet you back once I've done mine. As I say, this row is knit, next row is knit, next is knit, knit, knit. So I'm going to do that for about 6 rows, and then I'll meet you back. Right, so you can see how much this has got bigger from what I had made it. So just be aware of that. Now, all I did was a couple of rows in garter stitch. Now what I want to do is I'm going to just keep the garter stitch for 3 stitches here and 3 stitches there. That's all that I'm doing. So for this first row you're just going to knit, but for the next row, which would be a purl row, so this is just a knit. On your knit row you would just knit, but this is my purl row. So the first 3 are knitted, and then you will purl to the last 3, and then you would knit those, and that's going to keep this border going up along the side. And you can do that with ribbing, you can do it with, you know, seed stitch, you can do that with anything really. You could use more stitches. I'm just doing this the easy way, just in case you're not too advanced in your knitting. So now I'm going to just knit to the end, purl to the end, sorry, for this row. I'm purling that stitch there, and I've got 3 left, and I'm going to knit those. So you're going to put your yarn forward and then knit these 3. Okay, so as long as you can remember, on your purl round you have to knit the first 3 and the last 3, and then these you purl. So the next round is just, not round, the next row is just plain knit again. So you can go ahead and do that, and then you're going to do that as long as you want your pocket to be. So I'm going to do that, and then I will meet you back once I've got my pocket a little bit bigger, and then I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so what I did with this pocket, like I said, you just do this in your garter stitch and you keep your sides. So on the knit row, this works out great, you just knit. On your purl row, you have to keep remembering to just knit the first 3 and just knit the last 3. That's very important. And then switch over to your purl for the middle. Then I just finished off with the 2, the same as I did here, a few rows just in the garter stitch. And now I'm going to show you how to cast off, just in case you don't know. All that you do to cast off is knit 1, 2 in the beginning. So you knit 2 in the beginning, then you take this stitch and pull it over. Knit the next stitch and pull this stitch over. I do have a video on how to cast off in 2 different methods if you're not familiar with casting off. But all you do now is just keep adding a stitch, pulling that first one over, knit and pull this one over. Okay, so do that, and then I'll show you how we put our pockets on. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to sew this on. Now, I think it's best for me to sew mine all the way onto the edge, simply because of the size of my pocket. I could do it a little bit in, but I think it's going to work better for me this way. But if yours is smaller, you're going to do the same principle as what I am and just sew it over there. I'm sewing mine over here. I'd like to have a little piece at the bottom there just for variation. So anyway, now this is going to depend on the stitches that you have here, how you sew it on, but generally this is how you're going to sew it. I just want to really show you a general idea. So you take your yarn, get one of your yarning needles. If you did want to sew it the wrong way, like this, so that you don't see your sewing, you can only do the real bottom part like that and then flip it over. The rest is going to have to be sewn with the right side facing you. So to do that, we're just going to put our yarn into our hook, and I'm just going to do it all on the right way. You just have to be careful that you don't see your actual stitches. That's the main thing. So I'm going to start off at the bottom here, and I'm going to work so you don't really see it. So I'm taking stitches from more or less underneath my work. So you're going to work, I'm going to take my stitches from under here, from one side to the other. So I'm going to go like this. Whoops. And I'm taking stitches from here. And remember, you're going to see something on this side, so be careful with your other side, because you don't want to see this coming through. So you just kind of sew it. And you know what, if you really want to make it that you see your yarn, make it abstract, you know, make big stitches. So I'm taking some of my yarn from under there and I'm bringing it through here. And you just sew it on like that. So I'm taking from here and here. Just be aware of your pocket, actually aware of your pocket fitting. So you don't want to use too much. If you have to stretch this, see, I've got to stretch mine out a little bit here so that it keeps fitting there. So be sure that you're not taking more from here and less from there. So keep this, you could even pin this down with something. For example, take something and just pin this so that doesn't leave there. So I know that's where it's going to end. And then just work like this. As I said, I'm just taking some from here. You can't see it on the other side, and I'm sewing it together. And you just do that all the way around. Obviously not the top part of your pocket, because you need it to be open there. But that's really what you do. And that's all that you do. And then you just follow all the way around and do it. And be sure you're not seeing it on the side. Now if you've got the same color yarn, it doesn't really matter, because you won't see the actual stitching. Okay, so I'm going to go around, all the way around. That's what you do all the way around now. You're going to sew it there, you're going to come here, you're going to come onto your side. Same thing. When it comes to my side, I'm going to try not to sew it like this. I'm not sewing it like this and like that. I'm not doing that because I don't want my yarn to be over there. I'm going to go inside my stitch there and sew it there. See what I'm saying? So that you have kind of a stitch there. So bring this part here and sew it together. Okay, and yeah, that's all that I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and sew mine. And okay, so if you're wanting to do it in the technique where you pick up your stitches at the bottom of your scarf, make a pocket and then flip it over, you can do that. What you have to do is go to where your stitches are at the bottom, and you're going to go into your first stitch. There's a stitch, there, there. You're going to go into your first stitch, take your yarn and fold it over and hold it in your left hand. Now you're going to just do this and bring that little loop through. Little tricky, but you just bring it through. You could use a crocheting hook. If you're familiar with crocheting, that'll be easy. And that's all that you're going to do. Be sure that you're not using this thread. You're using the one that's coming from your yarn. Okay, and then you're going to get your next one, go in there and just bring up a stitch. Go in there, bring up a stitch. And as I say, if you have a crochet hook, it'll be easier to use it. But now you just got your stitches on here, like that. And go into each stitch. And then you can just start working your pocket. Right, so I've picked up my stitches. Be sure that you're picking up the same amount of stitches. I got 29, but it also depends on if you're doing a different pattern stitch. Now, you just have to be aware. This now, I want this to be the part that I'm going to flip over, because you can see you've got a bit of a ridge here. I don't want that to be on the right side. So in other words, when I start knitting now, I need to be sure that what I'm doing on this side, which I start with now, is going to be the wrong side of my work, so that the right side will be here. And then I'll flip it over and I'll put my pocket up here. I won't be flipping that, but this will be coming over here. Okay, so just be aware of that. That's important. And now you can just go ahead and make your pocket. If you're just going to knit, or if you're going to just do ribbing, or whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do stocking knit. Okay, now this, by me just knitting here, I'm looking at doing just plain garter stitch, because the garter stitch is a little bit of a looser stitch, or I can just do the stockinette. If I want to do the stockinette stitch, which is 1 row purl, 1 row plain, then I need to start with the purl row, because I need the wrong side of my work to be this side. Okay, so, well, if we look at stockinette, then you just go ahead and do your first row, which is just purl. So that's how you would go ahead and do it if you want to join, if you want to do it from the bottom of your scarf by picking up stitches. So you can do this, and then same thing, do your scarf, do whatever you're wanting to do here. And when on your last few rows, you can do a different pattern, so that, because with stockinette it's going to curl a little bit, so you could just go ahead and do a few rows of just garter stitch or of rib. It's totally up to you. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to do, was to give you an idea of some pockets. And this is if you're doing it this way. This is quite a good way, because this way you will have the exact amount of stitches that you have on your knitting. Yeah, you can see now that's the beginning of my pocket. So this way, as I said, you're going to get more of an accurate size pocket doing it like this. And I've just picked up those stitches there, and then this will be the inside, because that's my wrong side, and I'm going to be flipping my pocket over when I've made it. So yeah, that's really all that you do for your pocket, and then you can just go ahead and keep knitting until the pocket is the length that you want, and that's about it. But as I say, just be careful that you do pick up the correct amount of stitches for your work, and you can use any color, do whichever way you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and do my pocket, and then I'll show you. Okay, just a quick show to help you know which side of your work, if like this is my wrong side that I'm going to be, and I'm going to flip it up so that this side is over here. If you're picking up your stitches this way, you're going to be starting to knit this way, and if this is the right side of your row, then you're fine. Okay, so then you would be starting with your right side here. So just remember that. Now if I pick them up with my stitch going this way, in other words on the other side, just remember that when you turn, you have to turn it around. So whichever way I'm putting my needle, I'm going to be turning around, and that's going to be my first row. So this would now be, because I want this to be the wrong side. Okay, so, but if I put my needle in this way, this would, and this I want my right side, well, this is where I'm going to be starting off. Then this would have to be my purl row. So just be aware of that. It's just so that you know which way to do it. But just know, if you're putting your needle in this way, you have to turn around. So if this is the right side of your work, so this is my right side, my needle going that way, then this would be my wrong side that I would have been starting with. So just a quick little hint there. And then your other pockets, you do the exact same thing, just on the other side of it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done my pocket working from here. Now this is what I'm saying by the stitch, because I'm using a different stitch, it's slightly smaller than this stitch. The brioche stitch is very loose, so I used a bigger needle for this, but it's still quite a bit smaller than this, which is not a problem. I didn't mind that, because when I turn it around and put it on here, I just have to stretch it a little bit on the sides, not much but a little bit, and it works, it's fine. But just be aware of that if you are doing a different stitch, it's slightly different. Your gauge will be a little bit different, but work with it, knit a little bit and see if you're happy. If you don't, then you can change it. But I just did a little bit of ribbing at the top of my pocket just to change it a little bit, and I'm going to bring it up so that some of this is showing, because I do like that look. And that will be my pocket. So I'm going to cast off, and then I'm just going to sew this. Now I will be sewing it with the right sides together like this, just on the sides, and then I'm going to flip it inside out so that it'll turn over like that. So sewing it will be alright. But anyway, yeah, I'm just going to cast off. So I knit the first two, bring this stitch over, knit one, bring this stitch over, and that's all that I'm going to do. So I'm going to cast this off, and then I'm going to get ready to sew this together, and I'll meet you back now. Alright, so this is the right side of my work, and I'm going to just flip this up. As I said, I'm going to leave about so much at the bottom, and then we're just going to sew our sides. But yeah, just be sure that you're doing this so that this is even. So in other words, you don't take more here than here. You can see this has got more of these out. Look, count these, 1 2 3 4. So I want 4 of these, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So that's fine. 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So that is good on this side. And then just remember the same here, 1 2 3 4. See, this has got 5, so that's too much. I need to do it like that. Okay, and then just go ahead and sew this together. And this is the wrong side now, so it doesn't really matter that you see the sewing. You just sew this together there, whoops, and then your pocket will be on. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this. You can sew yours on, and then you just turn it inside out, and you have your pocket. And you can look on this side, and it looks good over there, so all is great. So yeah, go ahead and do that. Do this side, do that side, turn it inside out, and then you have your pocket on your scarf. So, and then when you do the other one, do the same thing on the other side, same amount of rows that you did, so that they're equal. And yeah, as I said, I just did ribbing at the top here, just a few rows of ribbing just to give it a bit of a different look. But yeah, there you have your pocket on your scarf. Alright, so now that if you are doing your pocket where you picking up the stitches here, on the other side we picked them up because that was the beginning of our row. But when you're coming to the last part of your scarf, you don't have to cast them off and then pick them all up and start your pocket. You can just go ahead and start your knitting from where you ended off. So that'll work on your other end of your scarf. So if that's what you're doing with your pocket, then you just start knitting your stockinette stitch and then flip it over like we did on this side. So, and that's when it's turned inside out. So that'll work if you do it that way. Yeah, so then you do it. So don't cast off if you're doing it for the pocket. Just keep knitting and then flip it over. And one last tip, when you're doing your pocket, if you're just knitting straight, be sure that you're doing it on the same side as your other pocket. Otherwise you're going to have one on this side and one on the other side. So just be sure it's on the same side. So be sure that you're doing your wrong side row as the purl over here. So for me it's fine, I can knit here because this is my wrong side row. But if this was going to be your wrong side row, don't knit that first row, purl it. Okay, so just be sure of that. I just did mine like this because mine's correct, but you might have yours slightly different. So just be aware of that, that's very important. Okay, so if you wanted to crochet a pocket, it's the same kind of principle as your knitted one. You know, you just have to see whether you want to join it on. The one way that you can do it, now it depends on what style scarf you have, what stitches, but this one I'll show you what I'm going to do for this one. I want to I don't want to do a separate one. You can do a separate one. You just have to do the same thing as you did with your knitting, is just do a few stitches and just make your chain and more or less the size that you want it to be. So I could see, okay, that's not big enough, and then just crochet whatever you want or whatever stitch you're wanting to. Let's see, that's still not big enough. It's so varied to every scarf as to what you can do. Let's see. Okay, that's more or less the size. I'll do just a few more. You might have to play with it and then undo it if it's too big or too small. And then let me just turn around. 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to do plain double crochets. So I just did my chains and I'm going to do double crochet in here. And for this I would just do plain double crochets for this pocket. Or just for the bottom and then change it to a pattern stitch. So just this first part. Okay, so I've got mine more or less the size that I want, and then I'm just going to turn around and do another set of double crochets. Now you can do whatever, as I say, if you want to do the same pattern stitch as this you could too, or you can flip it over like this and sew your sides together, and there you have a pocket. That's what we did with the knit as well. So if you're wanting to sew it over, pull it over, just sew it along the sides, there you have a pocket as well. Or if you're not wanting to do that, if you want to do this way, this is also great. And I'll show you one more way. So this you would just make whatever stitch and then you would sew it on. So I'll make this pocket quickly and then I'll show you another way to do it as well. Alright, so here I have my little pocket square finished. Where I did the beginning, the chain, I'm going to put that at the top for the pocket because it's a little bit tighter. And obviously go ahead and make a design as best as you want. You can do different designs, different patterns. You know, I'm just showing you how to actually put the pockets on. And yeah, then all you can do, you can crochet yours on or you can sew yours on. And I'm going to keep that little border on mine, and then I'm just going to sew this on. Try, depending on if you've got a different color yarn or not, because I've got the same yarn, I can just sew mine like this. If you're using a different color yarn and everything is different, you don't want your work, your sewing, to show up on the other side. So grab stitches where you're not going to see the yarn and don't go all the way through to the back. It depends on your stitches, but yeah, you just really sew it on. You can crochet it on if you want to. I'm just taking from this side to this side. You can crochet it on if you know how to do that, or just sew it on like this, just going from the one side to the other. And just the only thing is you need to be careful that you're not taking more from the one side than the other. So you be sure that you're going to line up equally with your pocket. Mine's a slight bit bigger, which is fine. I'm going to get it in there because then I've got a little bit of space. I don't have to pull anything for my hand to go in. So yeah, so that's all that you're going to do. You just sew it on like this, go all the way around, come up to here. Obviously don't sew this in. Then I'm going to come and sew that over there, and then the pocket is on. As I say, you can do it that way, or you could have just folded your crocheting up like this and make a pocket by just sewing it there. Then I'm going to show you one more way just to do it, if you want to do it from this section. So I'll show you now. Just if you're making it, you can go ahead and sew your pocket on, and yeah, that's all you do. As there are lots of different ways to do these, but this is your real basic one if you're just wanting to get a little pocket on your scarf. And it doesn't have to be down the bottom. You could have yours pocket kind of up here if you like. That doesn't matter with this open at the bottom, so you could put it up here. it's up to you. So yeah, let me go ahead and show you the other way. Alright, so if you want to just start, you'll still have to sew your sides down, but if you want to start like at the bottom, work into your work, I'll just go in here. Make sure it's facing this way, not this way, that you're working this way. And then, yeah, just go into your work, depending on what you have. And 1, 2, 3, and once again, then I'm just going to do double crochets. You'll have to see your stitch as to how many stitches you need to do. See, I'm going to get about 3 doubles in there. I'll do 1 in this one, and then another 3 in each of those. So you got to just play with your pattern stitch, whatever you have. And then I'm just going to work from here all the way. I'll just do exactly the same as I did on my other pocket. See, so it'll be like this, and then we would just flip it over. So I'm just going to make a pocket from there, keep going up, and then I would sew the sides on. Scarf, start at the bottom and just crochet a pocket. It's really just a square. Now you can change it. If you don't want a square, you can do a different type of pattern. You can increase and decrease to get a different shape. Okay, so I'm just coming to the end, and I didn't start in this, I started in this little chain space, so the same thing here. So that's it. Now I've got these the same. Okay, so I've come to the edge again. Either here my chain 1, 2, 3, and it depends on your, but this is what your pocket's starting to look like. So now I can turn around and go in here, and you're just coming back and forth on your pocket. So I'm going to work on mine a little bit, and then once I've got mine just about done, I will show you what it looks like. So just keep doing yours. That's what it looks like, and then I'll show you. Alright, so I've finished with mine, and you can see that it's needing just to be sewn in. So there's your pocket like that, and now we just sew our sides. If yours is a little big, mine's a little bit bigger, but as I said, I don't mind too much because I like to have it a little different and it's open there. But if you want yours really flat, you'll just have to measure yours, start it. If it's too big, just start again. You know, it's one of those things that you just have to do. Be sure that your sides, when you sew them up, are at the same spot. You don't want to have an uneven pocket. And then all you do is sew this in. You just go from the one side to the other, and there you have your pocket done without doing a chain, just starting on your actual work. So those are really the 3 ways that you can do it. Either folding your scarf over, just making a separate square which you actually put on, and doing it this way. So yeah, I hope that this has at least helped you to get started with some pockets on your scarves. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in my next lesson. Thanks guys, bye.